Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we're going to continue our whip around the NFL, previewing all the teams as week one rapidly approaches. The next division we have to go through is the NFC East. So, Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's keep it rolling. Let's run it, baby.
Let's do it. We do these alphabetically. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to start with the Dallas Cowboys. And let's be real. Will they ever learn? Like, it's the same crap every single year. And it's like, here we go again. Is this year the year? Like, but what
No.
makes, yeah, exactly. You already answered it. What makes this year different than any other year? Like, what's changed? I mean, you trade for Brandon Cooks and Stephon Gilmore. The draft wasn't really stellar, and they didn't do anything in free agency. All they did was really brought all their guys back and just kind of translated to an offseason of like, blah. And as far as the team itself goes, Dak Prescott has some questions to answer. Like, can he make better decisions and turn the ball over less? And is he worthy of being the long-term solution for quarterback, especially since they dealt for Trey Lance? It's not like it's not a threatening kind of thing, but the fact that they
It
made the
provides them
move.
some type of option if they have yet another disappointment where things again, it's like, we have the weapons, I guess, but I don't
Yeah.
necessarily agree with that per se. But in their mind, it's like, oh, we've been like right here,
Mm-hmm.
why can't we go over? One of the next things that could go is Dak Prescott if they think that he is no longer essentially equipped to bring this team to the highest level, and is definitely an argument to be made that he doesn't. In general, with the way that their team is now, the one thing I think they do have going for them is I overall think they'll be a slightly more efficient offense by getting rid of Zeke. I think
Yeah,
now
it's like
Tony
addition by
Pollard.
subtraction.
Yes, I think it will provide a little bit more clarity at the running back position. Now, granted, we still have not yet seen what Tony Pollard may look like as a full-time
Mm-hmm.
RB1, but I also think in general it will just be more efficient without Zeke and his sort of
Yeah,
confusing ways.
I think it'll be fine. Tony Pollard handled the load pretty well last year, so it
Yeah.
shouldn't be any different. I mean, you draft Deuce Vaughn, that can kind of be your change of pace back, but there isn't really much competition for touches other than
Yeah.
Tony Pollard. Like, that's kind of delving into like fantasy stuff a little bit, but like you should have already had your
But
draft by
even
this point.
but also even just with the way that their offense is going to work, they no longer have to worry about like, oh, we have Zeke, we're going to use him some, and then okay, when do we use Pollard? And it's kind of this weird
Yeah.
cat and mouse game of when either want to use Tony Pollard. He's the younger, more explosive. He's your guy. Let him work. I have a feeling he's going
Mm-hmm.
to do pretty darn well in that offense. Brandon Cooks, I think, he's always been a guy that has existed well
I think
within
Brandon Cooks
pretty
goes
much
for over a
whatever.
thousand yards.
I would agree. I think this offense, with the way that they run their offense and they pass the ball, as long as Dak doesn't throw three interceptions a game,
Which he might.
I think
He
Brandon.
might.
That's the problem. I think Brandon Cooks will be in a position to get enough targets and enough receptions to be a very staple player on this team or on this offense specifically. I don't really like them losing Dalton Schultz because we know how much Dak really likes the tight end position. He's always used his
Have you
tight end
ever heard
pretty
of a tight
thoroughly.
end by committee? Heck
Yeah, and
yeah.
I don't like the
Jake
sound of it.
Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, and Peyton Hendershot. Let's
We'll
go in a
see.
Super Bowl.
I mean, we'll see. It's very possible that those guys, obviously, we have not seen much of what those guys can do at all.
No, they're all young.
Maybe one or more of them will step up and they will, combine to be a decently solid tight end room. But I'll
Mm-hmm.
believe it when I see it. And in general, the defense, I mean, it's still going to be as
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty solid as it has been in the past. I don't think it's going to be
Uh,
elite. I think they will have the ability to be exposed at times, potentially, especially depending on. I think what it comes down to is how much will that, or how many favors will that offense do for the defense? Are they
well,
going to put
I
that defense out on the field time and time
yeah.
again with costly mistakes on offense and tire them out? Or will they be able to put up their side of the bargain and, kind of give them more
Mm-hmm.
favorable, positions to start every drive, that type of thing, give them time to be off the field?
Yeah. So what I think about the defense is you got some pretty decent guys up front. You have some solid guys in the secondary. but you got some big holes up the middle at the second level in the linebacker because outside of Leighton Vander Esch, you don't really have that much. I mean, Micah
Not
Parsons was
particularly.
drafted to be a middle linebacker, but they shifted him over to the edge, and he's a
As
monster.
that's where he belongs. I firmly believe that he belongs off the edge, and that's going to be essentially the best use that they can get out of
Mm-hmm.
him. Putting
Yeah,
him at
so
linebacker would be a waste of his skill
just
set.
you just need another like middle guy to kind of shore it up. So with all that being said, the expectations for Dallas is to get over the hump with Mike McCarthy, who is also kind of on the head, like the hot seat, and Dak Prescott is your quarterback. Like, will this year really be any different? I mean, I have them at
It doesn't feel
11
like
and
it.
6. You have them at 9 and 8, which I think is a little bit low, but
Again, it's one of those things where it's like
yeah, let you explain yourself.
my problem is I think there's going to be too much inconsistency. This is absolutely a team that can win 11 games and get themselves, back in the wild card, so on and so forth. But the problem is I think they're going to be too hit or miss. They're going to be a team that wins a lot of the games they should. They may steal a game or two when they play a really good game against a team that they realistically shouldn't beat. But I also see them being a team that drops a couple of games because to me, it's the Cowboy way, it's the Mike McCarthy way, and they don't have the talent to overcome the combination of that, inconsistency.
So I don't think it's too much of a hot take to say they're going to be looking for their first Super Bowl still since 1995. But yeah, we're going to move on. The next team we have is the New York Giants, who we severely
Hey,
underrated last season.
I will totally admit that I
Yeah,
did not see that coming at all.
me neither. Me neither.
Big
Because
part of it,
an
is I did not necessarily
excellent
like.
coaching job by Brian Dable. That's where it
Oh, for
starts.
sure.
That's where it
It starts with
starts.
yeah, 100% starts with the fact that I didn't necessarily believe in Brian Dable, and I apologize. That was a big mistake on my part. Second of all, I did not know what kind of season we were going to get out of Saquon. It's one of those things where running backs returning from things is always a big question mark, and he's solidified in the fact that he was back. He was back to being, a big part of the Saquon that we knew pre his injury struggles, as well as the fact that he was able to stay healthy. We've seen a lot of times
And that's
with
the
running
big
backs,
ticker.
yeah, they're able to come back and still be effective. But once you get those first injuries, a lot of times it makes you a lot more injury prone. So that's what kind of led me to believe that enough would collapse, that they would not be good. And they proved everything wrong. Also, we've continued to see an increase in maturity, decision making, and just overall ability from Daniel Jones. Not saying he's a world beater, no one's expecting him to be, but we've continued to see him get more comfortable in that system. And especially, I think Brian Dable did a good job of actually utilizing what he is good at. They let him, take off every once in a while.
Let him cook.
And I mean, legitimately, they let him cook in the areas that he does well. And
I mean,
that to me is.
Yeah, he had a noticeable improvement. Was it a 4-year, $160 million improvement? I don't know, but
I think that contract. I mean,
a
first of all,
sizable extension, a financial commitment to him.
I think the commitment comes with the belief that they will continue to see steady improvement. They are not spending that money on who he is currently. They're spending that money saying, if we continue to work with him, they expect another jump this year. They expect, another jump moving on. Realistically, in his, first season, inaugural season with Brian Dable, that was immediately a significant difference. And you think about what, growth can happen when coaches get more comfortable with their quarterback and, continue to understand where they can put them in places to succeed. And I think that's what they're believing in. And I get it. I still don't necessarily think that's quite worth it, but I understand where the concept is from of, this is what we saw. We're going to hold on to him. We're going to bank that this project can continue to move in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think that's a little deeper than most people would think, because most people just kind of see Daniel Jones 4 for 160 and they go, "What? He's not worth $160 million."
At face value, the deal does not make sense. But
No, of course, but you're believing in him. You're believing he can continue to progress. And to give him more benefit of the doubt, year two is really when an offense and their quarterback really starts clicking. That's when they really
Yeah.
figure it out and take control. And
And they've
he
given him
has
some more
upgraded
weapons.
weapons. You make a trade for Darren Waller, and now you have guys like Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins. You draft Jalen Hyatt, which I think he is going to be very, very good in the NFL. That kind of breakaway
He's
speed is something that you cannot teach. There's a level of explosiveness there that the other receivers for the Giants just don't have. But nevertheless, you have some new targets to throw to. Another year in the offense, continue to develop. And if Saquon stays healthy, that's going to be another big thing. I think if he goes down, then the Giants might be up the creek without a paddle, because when you have to worry about Saquon, that takes the pressure off Daniel Jones, and then you can just kind of let him cook. But on the other side of the ball, a big emphasis was put on defensive acquisitions. They got a lot of guys, signing guys like up the middle, like Raheem Nunez-Roches, Ashawn Robinson. Their big free agent was Bobby Okereke to play the Mike linebacker.
and I
Amani
definitely like that signing.
Aruarie, Bobby McCain on the corners. And then you make the trade for Isaiah Simmons, which was really interesting because he has the high draft pedigree, but like most things in Arizona recently, it isn't quite working out. So now he gets a new start with the Giants. I think that is going to be the piece that puts that defense not over the top, but it makes them a much better defense by comparison.
Yes, it makes them that much more competitive on that side of the ball. With them continuing to figure stuff out on the offensive side of the ball, they truly made the decision of, okay, our defensive issues can be, directed towards a pieces issue. So they went and found pieces. They believe that these
Oh
pieces are
boy, did
what's
they.
going to, yeah, are what's going to help them, put them over the top and being a truly competitive, solid NFL defense. And I do agree. I think the Bobby
Wow.
Okereke the pickup is very important. I have heard that they do plan on using Isaiah Simmons as a linebacker rather than a cornerback. But again, his versatility, you never know what can happen throughout the season if they feel a need to do some type of switch up. But in general, I think that those additions certainly do fill holes that were very evident in that team. So overall, I think despite the success that they did have last year, I also think that this is a more complete team than they were last year. So all signs
Which makes
point
sense.
towards,
Which
yeah,
makes
all signs
sense
point
because
towards them moving in the right direction still,
yeah,
but
because you have them improving. You have them at 10-7. I have them at 9-8. They were 9-7-1 last year. I think that should be good enough to get into the wild card. And especially
yeah,
since there's such an opportunity for a lot of teams in the NFC to sort of stake their claim. I think the Giants will be a bubble team. Playoffs are not a guarantee, especially in the
no,
NFL, but it's realistic if they continue to improve all around, because on paper they did get better. They did get better
yeah.
on paper, but it doesn't always work that way, as we've clearly seen throughout the entire history of however long we've been watching the NFL, which is quite a while. So we'll see how it plays out. We got a few more teams to go through. The next team being, I think, objectively the most exciting team in this division, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles. Shoot, they went to the Super Bowl and almost won it too, but they came up just short. But this team's loaded for bear. They're locked in and they're incredibly ready. I think the biggest change is both coordinators from last year took head coaching jobs. Shane Steichen
Yes.
is in Indianapolis and Jonathan Gannon went to Arizona. But I mean, hey, that's what you get for being good at stuff. When you have a really good offense and a really good defense, people are going to want to try to take that blueprint. So coordinators go bye-bye. But
Yeah, I completely agree. They're set to have another very solid season as long as in theory, I guess, to play devil's advocate a little bit. In theory, you have to prove that last season wasn't necessarily a fluke. It shouldn't be, but the coordinators definitely would be, the biggest argument to point towards. You're going to have two different
Hmm.
coordinators. Things are going to be different around there. You lose guys like CJ Gardner-Johnson, but I mean, you gain a guy like Jalen Carter. How did we let that happen?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you talk about CJ Gardner-Johnson losing. I think the additions that they made in terms of depth go so under the radar because of
yeah,
what this team is. There was so much veteran depth added. Yeah,
yeah.
you have a guy like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean, who are young pups that have all the talent in the world. But then you bring in Zach Cunningham, Miles Jack, Greedy Williams, Terrell Edmonds. Like, those are not bad players that have had
Not only
six.
are they not bad players, but I think the biggest thing to note is it seems like on this defense, in every position that they have, like
They're
these,
stacked. They're
young guys.
stacked.
Well, not even that. Not even just that. It's the fact that every position where they have, a couple or a decent amount of these young guys that certainly have the talent, but they, need to figure it out. It seems like at almost every single one, you have like this veteran or this truly seasoned guy that has been there for a long time that may not be the super uber talented that they maybe once were, but fantastic guys for so many of these young guys to learn under. I mean, you
Yeah,
talk about the defensive line, like the fact that that defensive line gets to learn behind, say, Fletcher Cox or Brandon Graham, like, oh my gosh. And then
that's
that
insane.
secondary, yeah, the secondary, you've got guys like, I mean, Darius Slay at the cornerback position has consistently been among the best in the league. And I mean, the list goes
And then
on
you're
there.
able to
So,
retain James Bradbury too. And we didn't even mention that they also drafted Nolan Smith and Keely Ringo. So it's basically the Georgia defense plus a bunch of NFL
hey,
veterans.
if
I would
you wanted
argue,
to emulate a college defense, George is the best one to do it. So,
I mean, A, the Packers did that first, but B, and more importantly, I think this Eagles second team defense might be better than some NFL teams' first defense with how deep they are. That I cannot emphasize how stacked that defense is. And we didn't even talk about the offense. We didn't
yes,
talk about how high they flew.
but devil's advocate once again, they have all the players. Will Sean Desai put them in places to succeed? Because we have seen very talented defenses just not click together within the right schemes. They shouldn't have any issues with it, but I am still interested to see how different of a team schematically this defense will be from last year. I'm not saying they'll struggle, but I'm not yet
You always
ready
got
to
to play
say
devil's
this is.
advocate, dude.
Guess what? That's why we're here. I'm not
It's
here
also,
to agree with you on
granted,
everything.
it's fun.
Yes.
However, just like, let me have my fun with my hot takes. All right.
It's not even that that's much of a hot take.
It
I
is,
am
it is a much
acknowledging
of a
the
hot
fact these
take.
players are incredible, but I'm
I mean,
just
hey,
curious to
I could
see.
hit you with some hot takes if you want some hot takes. Jordan Love for MVP. Anyway, I mean, it's a really good Eagles team. But back to planet Earth, we're going to talk about the offense for a bit. Um, Speaking of like true MVP candidates, Jalen Hurts, he got better and better and better as the year went along, especially in the Super Bowl. And he has
Also,
become.
if he stays healthy for every regular season game, I truly still believe that he makes a legitimate argument for regular season MVP. But again,
This
he
year?
was out for no last year.
Ah, yeah,
So you know how he
yeah.
missed like there was a game or two at the end of the season. I think if he stays healthy for the complete regular season, I think he puts up a legitimate argument against Mahomes for MVP.
Gardner Minshew needs to start somewhere. Anyway, I mean, Jalen Hurts he has the potential to take the MVP this year, especially with the supporting cast that they have around him. You trade for DeAndre Swift and you pick up Rashad Penny in free agency. I mean, look, the Eagles love to run the ball. They always love using running back by committee, and you can never have too many good running backs. And then on the
I also think they
outside,
improved their committee overall. I got to
I
be honest. I
agree.
do think they overall improved the depth and strength of their committee.
Oh,
So
they absolutely did. And on the outside, you have weapons to throw to, like an AJ Brown, like a Devontae Smith, like a Dallas Goddard. Also, speaking about Devontae Smith, We saw why he won the Heisman. It transferred over into the NFL. Good luck paying him. Good luck having to pay everybody. But then again, like cap space is kind of a myth.
It's a
But
fuzzy gray area.
the Eagles should have a pretty easy time getting back to the NFC Championship. And Super Bowl champions would surprise nobody as far as record predictions goes. I have them at 13-4. Tim, you have them at 14-3. So very, very high expectations for Philly. I mean, can they go to the promised land? Are we going to book it? Are we going to book it right here? Yes, I am baiting you.
No, I can't
You
book
can't
that.
book it? Oh,
No, because here's the thing. It's one of those situations where if you look, it's again, you look at a team on paper, and by golly, is this the most complete NFL roster? 100%. Offense, defense, depth, yes. But there are still a couple of question marks. And it mostly just has to deal with how these guys are going to fit together. Will the pieces they brought in mesh the same way with the pieces that were on their way out? And again, coaching.
that's the
What will these two
million-dollar
coordinators?
question.
And I gotta be honest. This feels like a situation where the expectations are going to be that high, and it makes it that much easier to slip up. I mean, it's not like they've won already, so they still should have that hunger. But also, when they started last season, nobody was like, "This is a team that's going to start what 7-0." Was it?
Yeah.
Very few people were really saying like, "This is a team that's going to compete for
I
a Super
mean,
Bowl right now."
if I'm correct, I believe I said that they should win the division. I didn't think they were going to be the best team in the NFC by a country mile at the end
we
of
were
last season.
thinking we were thinking that they were going to continue their relatively linear
Yeah.
ascent, and instead they took that linear ascent and made it exponential and just skyrocketed up to the top of the NFC.
Dude, that they did.
But the
And
problem is can you stay up there?
I think that's the question for any powerhouse team. And you're right. They haven't won anything yet. This team still is looking for a Super Bowl. And the fact that you lost in the Super Bowl last season creates that drive and creates that hunger, because losing in the Super Bowl sucks. And I mean, well, like, duh, but you know,
I mean, yeah. So here's the
you
thing:
still got to get back and win.
you want me to give a little bit of a hot take. I think it's
Yeah.
either
Considering that you had the Eagles going 9-8 last year.
for this season for the Eagles, they are either in the Super Bowl or they don't win a playoff game.
Oh,
Either they are there or they drop the first one. I think if they catch, any amount of wind in the playoffs, I think they're going to keep that train rolling into the Super Bowl. Again, I'm not willing to book the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl is such, a crapshoot of,
like, I mean, say they
stuff.
like somehow go 10-7, and then they also play the 10-7 NFC North champion Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. I mean, that might be your wild card loss right there. I mean, you said it. That's your hot take. I'm with you. I am totally on board with that,
That's
dude.
not what I meant.
Are you sure? Because that's what you said. We got one more team to go through, so we're going to just move right on. And last, but certainly not least, we got the Washington Commanders, which the main acquisition of the offseason is Dan Snyder sold the team. Woo! Washington fans rejoice. Now on to like the actual football part of things. What can we expect? So Carson Wentz out, Taylor Heineke out, which, why would you let him go? People love Taylor
Yeah,
Heineke. Taylor
yeah, he
Heineke
was.
was not bad. He would have died for the maroon and gold, and you let him walk to be a
Yeah.
backup in Atlanta. I don't understand. I don't get it. But
No, I don't get it either. It's one of those things where it's like I guess Sam Howell being the younger guy with maybe a little bit more
Well, like Tim, even as
promise.
a backup, I would take Taylor Heineke
Oh,
over Jacoby
for
Brissett
sure.
in a
For
heartbeat, and you can
sure.
get Taylor Heineke at a cheaper price.
Yeah. No, I completely
So
agree. It
I
does not
mean,
make sense to me. But then again, we are talking about the Commanders here. So
yeah.
what a
Well,
great place to start.
you know what? I think just with an overall umbrella picture of the Commanders, what you need to ask is, does this new ownership group like start a new culture where the previous regime of ineptitude of Dan Snyder just being like does that change? Do
Let's just say
things actually get better?
if it does, it's not happening this year.
I completely agree.
Not enough was changed in terms of even just the overall team makeup for
The only
this
major
team to be.
change is Sam Howell at quarterback. Other than that, even with Sam Howell at quarterback, this team didn't get better. This team
You're
did
still
not
running with
improve.
the same very up and down but mediocre backfield of Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson. You still really haven't given Scary Terry much of a place to succeed. Maybe he'll have a better connection with Sam Howell. I struggle to see it. I still think he'll have, the flashes and
But
whatnot, but I
like,
don't think that this offense can be consistent.
what makes Sam Howell any different than like the other 30 years of quarterbacks that they brought in after Mark Rippon?
I'm just
Like,
saying, even in Scary Terry's time in Washington, I don't feel like he has been put in a position to succeed. And with the guys behind him, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, again, names you recognize have the ability to be, but not
yeah,
good.
yeah. I mean, this is clearly the fourth best team in this division. And
Oh, 100%.
we're just gonna jump right to record predictions and to get that out of the way, because spoiler alert, it's not good. It's really
No,
bad.
I'm not a fan. I gotta be
I have
honest.
them at 5-12, and Tim, you have them at 2-15. Which, I mean, you can see them around that like 5-12 mark. We talked about this off camera a little
Yes.
bit, but like, and the main reason for that, they went 8-1 last year. They won a couple games that they probably shouldn't have won. But the main thing around it is everybody else around you improved. The Eagles got better. The Cowboys got better. Not by much, but they still improved. And the Giants got better. The Commanders didn't. They didn't get better. So
Also, to be fair, the Cowboys did not need to improve to still be significantly better than the Commanders, and the
I
Commanders did not get better.
I agree. And it's either you get better or you get left behind. It's
Yeah, and
really that simple.
in this competitive division, they are going to get left behind. I gotta be honest. I do not see the Commanders winning a game in this division. Maybe for some wild reason they sneak one in a game where maybe the Giants or the Cowboys is like injury depleted, or they've got the wrong
Well,
game
that's the
script a certain
thing.
week.
They stole the game against the Commanders, and Sam Howell played pretty well. And the entirety of the DMV area lost their minds. Lost their minds. Like, oh my God, this guy's the savior. And okay, fine. Maybe this is because I saw Sam Howell, in person at the combine before he was drafted, and he did terribly. He didn't do good. Maybe that just left a bad taste in my mouth, because first
Yeah.
impressions do matter. But
Again,
like,
devil's advocate. He has upside. But again,
right.
I don't think this team, this roster, this organization has the ability to bring out upside in just about anybody. Any of the guys that you've seen succeed on this team have not succeeded because of the fact that they've gotten the best brought out of them.
The Washington Commanders really remind me of a team from the Midwest area that plays on a lake that hasn't had a 4,000-yard passer anywhere. I can't quite put my finger on it. I see a fair bit of similarities between the organizations and the fan base and just their entire situation in general. But like, I mean, I don't know. They might wear blue and orange, but Tim, it's like your connections to Purdue. It's my connections to like the Green Bay Packers being the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, the Green Bay Packers are older than sliced bread, but like, and the Chicago Bears being absolute dookie. It is what it is, man. I can't change it. I can't help it. So I'm going to point out that fact.
Are you done?
Death, taxes, and the Bears and Commanders being awful. All right. That's
Death,
just
taxes, and Drew making horrendous connections to the Chicago Bears that aren't valid whatsoever. But
what do you mean? How? Please, really?
You're going to compare this team and this organization to the Bears.
You're
At least
right.
the Bears have some
you know
hope.
what? You know what? You're right. The Commanders have had success in the 80s. The Commanders got 3 Super Bowls. The Bears only got 1. You're right. That's an inopportune comparison.
Okay, saying the 3 versus 1 is okay, but if you were going to say that the Bears didn't have success in the 80s when they had the best, arguably one of the best defenses of all time, when they won the Super Bowl.
I mean, 2000 Ravens and 2002 Bucks better, but like we're getting off topic. I think the general overarching theme is that the Commanders are going to stink.
Well, yeah, I think the few bright spots that they have / had on the team don't feel very bright if they are still there, or some of them they managed to fumble and let go. I personally think that it was a bad decision, almost horrible decision for them to let go of Cole Holcomb. I think he was a very, very solid linebacker.
They didn't want to pay him.
They have Cody Barton, they have Jamin Davis, but like, their secondary is still as incredibly mid as ever.
Water.
I mean, maybe Emmanuel Forbes will be a bright spot, but Emmanuel Forbes can't save that defense, even if he actually does have talent. And again, he's another one of those guys that maybe he has upside, but
now it's my turn to play devil's advocate, because that defensive line is one of the best in the NFL. There's no arguing that. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, and if he can stay healthy, Chase Young, it's about best as it gets in terms of D lines in the NFL.
Top 3, top 5, yeah.
But that alone doesn't make you a good defense.
No, not at all.
You need a complete team, and they don't have that. Yeah. And their corners and their safeties
past that front. You get past that front 4, and you don't see anything really worth of much value.
But Tim, Kendall Fuller
has done what? How do you think he ended up on the Commanders in the first place? If he was worth anything, he would have never ended up there.
Okay. Anything else we got to say? or is it like
we've dogged on him pretty hard? I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, please say it with your chest. They're gonna stink.
Hey, I'm not taking any of it back.
Oh, me neither. Call us haters, Commanders fans, stay mad. But
well, here's the thing. First of all, prove me wrong. Second of all, I also think that this is going to be a season for the Commanders because you're seeing like the potential start of a transition. What makes me think that out of anything that we're seeing out of this organization and this team makes me think that they want to win now. If anything, I could
enjoy your top 5 pick.
That's what I'm saying. If anything, once they start struggling a bit, why would they want to win 5-6 games? At that point, you damn near want to, lose almost as many as you can. So again, we're not necessarily going to see like direct tanking, but I also don't see them.
Yeah, I'm not going to book that the Washington Commanders draft Caleb Williams or Drake May, because that would be just straight haterade that I'd be drinking. But we're going to say that they're not very good. But that's all we got for this preview of the NFC East. We're going to be whipping around the entire league. If you haven't watched our NFC North or AFC North preview, go do that. And all the other stuff we got on the channel. We have so many sports, and if there's anything you want us to cover, let us know. But if you want us, you can find us on all platforms where podcasts are available, and YouTube, of course. So if you want more from us, like and subscribe. And until next time, we out. God, the Commanders are terrible.